So it's February 2026. And just when you thought, that the story had finally run its course.
That we'd seen everything there was to see.
Exactly. Just when you thought we could maybe close this chapter, the floor just drops out. 3 million new files.
And we should be clear, this isn't just old stuff being rehashed. This is new.
Right. This is the big one. The massive release of Jeffrey Epstein files that was mandated by that legislation last November. And honestly, the scale is just, it's hard to wrap your head around.
It's a fire hose of information.
It is. It's been years since his death, but the headlines are screaming again. Names, photos, allegations. It's completely overwhelming.
It is. And that's really why we're doing this. If you're listening, you don't need us to just, read a list of names you've already seen scrolling on your phone.
That's the low-hanging fruit.
Right. Our mission here is to cut through all that noise. And we're basing this whole deep dive on a really forensic analysis by The Guardian, which has been digging into this stuff from the moment it dropped.
Yeah, we want to look past the gossip and actually look at the machinery of it all. The specific emails, the logistics, and the huge what-ifs that are just buried in these pages, because when you read the actual words, the tone, that's what gets you.
I think that's the frame for you listening. This isn't just about salacious details. It's a case study, really, in how influence and access worked at the absolute highest levels, how the doors opened, who had the keys,
and why they stayed open for so long. So let's get into it, because the biggest bombshell in this whole 3 million file haystack might not be a name at all. It's a date.
Yes, this is absolutely where we have to start. Everything else, really, it just pivots around this one moment in time.
Okay, so picture this. It's July 29th, 2019. Epstein's in jail in the Metropolitan Correctional Center. The whole world knows he's been arrested.
And he's less than 2 weeks away from dying in his cell.
Less than 2 weeks. And on that day, his lawyers are sitting in a room with Manhattan federal prosecutors.
And according to a specific FBI document in these files, one called the Epstein Investigations Summary and Timeline, they weren't just there to talk about bail. They were talking about cooperation.
Cooperation, that one word, it just hangs there. For anyone listening who isn't a lawyer, what does that actually mean in a case like this?
Well, it usually means you're ready to make a deal. You offer information on other people, names, crimes, dates, in exchange for, a lighter sentence. It's the biggest bargaining chip you have.
So is he already naming names?
Well, we have to be really precise here. The FBI summary says his lawyer spoke in very general terms. So there wasn't like a signed deal on the table or a list of names being passed over.
Okay, so just floating the idea.
Exactly. The document says defense counsel didn't make a specific proposal, but, and this is the key part, the prosecutors told them to contact the Southern District of New York, the SDNY, if Epstein was prepared to accept responsibility.
The SDNY. Those are the heavy hitters.
That's the sovereign district. They don't play around. And this just changes the whole texture of those final days. Think about that pressure cooker. If you're someone who was involved with him and you get even a whisper that his lawyers are talking cooperation with the SDNY just days before he dies.
It's the ultimate prisoner's dilemma, but with billionaires and politicians.
It suggests he wasn't just fighting anymore. He's maybe looking for the exit ramp. If he had lived another month or 2 weeks, we could be talking about a completely different story right now.
That is a massive what if, and you have to keep in mind as we go through these names, because now we have to talk about the people who might have been worried about that cooperation. And the files, they really hit the whole political map.
They do. And this is where we need to be really careful. We're just reporting what's in the documents and the context that the authorities themselves have provided. You have to separate what's a verified email from what's, a raw tip from a hotline.
Good point. Let's start with former President Donald Trump. An FBI summary in this batch lists over a dozen tips involving him.
Correct. But we have to pause right there. This is a perfect example of why you can't just read the headline. The Department of Justice itself put out a statement saying this new release could have fake or falsely submitted materials in it.
Because these were tips from the public, right? Not sworn testimony.
Essentially, yes.
Huh.
The summary is just a compilation of tips the agency received. Some include very serious claims, like sexual abuse. But, and this is critical, the document doesn't say any of this was verified. There's no corroborating evidence presented with it.
And the response from his side has been pretty direct.
Yes, they pointed straight to that DOJ statement. The DOJ was pretty blunt, actually. They said some of these documents have untrue and sensationalist claims that were submitted right before the 2020 election. Their logic is, look, if any of this had a shred of credibility, it would have been weaponized years ago.
So on one side, you have these unsubstantiated tips, but then you go across the ocean to UK politics, and the evidence is, it's a different story. We're not talking about tips anymore. We're talking about bank records. Peter Mandelson.
This is a completely different category of evidence. The files seem to show 3 separate payments of $25,000 from Epstein's J.P. Morgan accounts that reference Mandelson by name.
And this wasn't from, like, the 90s or something.
No, that's the whole point. There was money sent to Mandelson's husband after Epstein got out of prison in 2009.
Okay, so that timeline is everything. This is post-conviction.
Post-conviction, post-sex offender registration, and then there's a photo. Mandelson, in his underwear, standing next to a woman whose face is blacked out.
And the fallout has been fast. I mean, Mandelson was a giant in the Labor Party.
It was swift and it was severe. He was fired in September because of these links, and he just resigned from the party this past Sunday.
What's the defense? I mean, how do you explain away bank transfers?
He says he has no memory of getting the money, doesn't know if the documents are real, and for the photo, he says he cannot place the location or the woman. He apologized for the association, but that paper trail is very hard to just explain away.
It's always the paper trail. But speaking of paper trails, let's move to the business world, because this is where the logistics of access get really weird. It's all about scheduling.
The banality of it is what's so striking. It's like corporate efficiency for evil. Take someone like Elon Musk.
Right. Musk's public stance is crystal clear. He called Epstein obviously a creep back in 2019. But the emails in these files, they tell a slightly more cordial story.
They do. Files show these friendly exchanges, and very specifically, they show the plans were made twice, in 2012 and 2013, for Musk to go visit Epstein's private island.
But did he ever actually go?
The email suggests the trips never happened. But the reason given wasn't, I'm not coming to your creepy island. It was logistical issues.
And that's the whole thing, isn't it? Musk's rep confirms he declined the invitations, but the door was open enough that calendars were being checked.
It just shows that at the time, Epstein was still someone you replied to politely. He didn't just want to, burn that bridge entirely.
And that's a theme that just keeps coming up. Howard Lutnick, who is now the Commerce Secretary.
Yeah, a very high-profile public official. And the files show he arranged a visit to the island in 2012.
Which seems to contradict what he's said before.
It appears to. He'd said he cut ties around 2005 and called Epstein disgusting. But then you have arrangements from 7 years after that. His spokesperson says the interactions were limited, but the timeline in the files doesn't quite line up with that clean break narrative.
It's that messy middle. It's not, I didn't know him. It's, okay, I knew him, but I'm trying to downplay it now. And then, then there's Richard Branson. And this one email. Honestly, I had to read it twice.
The 2013 email.
As long as you bring your harem, a direct quote from Richard Branson to Jeffrey Epstein.
It is jarring.
Is there any context? Please tell me there's some kind of context for that.
Well, according to the Virgin Group, there is. They say Branson sent this after a business meeting where Epstein showed up with 3 women. And Epstein himself, apparently, referred to them as his harem.
So Branson was just repeating the joke back to him.
That's the defense. They say contact was limited. It was over 12 years ago. But you have to step back and just think about that. Even if you're just repeating the term, you're normalizing it. A guy brings women he calls a harem to a business meeting, and the follow-up is a joke about it.
That's it. That's the aha moment. The casualness. It wasn't shocking to them. It was just Tuesday.
That's the culture of impunity you see right there in black and white. It wasn't that people didn't know he was a creep. It's that it didn't matter enough to stop the deal.
Okay, if we're talking about impunity, we have to go to the royals.
Right.
Because this part of the files, it takes us inside Buckingham Palace. Literally.
This might be the most audacious detail in the whole 3 million files. We're talking about Prince Andrew.
And for you listening, again, the timeline is everything. This is 2010.
Yes. 2010, Epstein has already served his time. He's a convicted sex offender. He's on the registry. And he emails saying he's in London and wants to get together for private time.
And the response from the prince?
We could have dinner at Buckingham Palace. Come with whomever.
Buckingham Palace. For a convicted sex offender.
And he adds, I'll be here free from 1600-ish. Like he's inviting a buddy over for a beer.
It's unbelievable.
And it gets even more specific. The documents show Epstein offered to set Andrew up for dinner with a 26-year-old Russian woman he called clever, beautiful, and trustworthy.
And Andrew's response to that offer?
Delighted.
Delighted.
And on top of that, there's a new photo the DOJ released. It looks like Andrew crouching over a woman who's lying on the floor.
It just completely shatters that whole defense of I went to New York to break things off with him, doesn't it?
It makes it seem, well, absurd. These emails were arranging dinners at the palace, not ending a friendship. It implies an active, ongoing social connection long after everyone knew what he was.
And that kind of social connection, it also stretched into the sports world. Steve Tisch, the co-owner of the New York Giants.
Yeah, he's mentioned hundreds of times.
Man.
Emails about adult women, about movies, philanthropy. He's admitted to a brief association he regrets, but again, it's that pattern. Epstein was just integrated into the normal flow of high society.
Which brings us to Hollywood, and this is where the familiarity, the tone gets really creepy for me. Casey Wasserman.
Huge figure, head of the LA Olympics Committee.
The emails between him and Ghislaine Maxwell from 2003, I mean, they're tough to read.
They're very familiar. Wasserman asks what he has to do to see her in a tight leather outfit.
And her reply is offering a massage that can drive a man wild.
Now, he's issued a statement saying he deeply regrets it, that this was long before her crimes came to light, and he denies any relationship with Epstein, though he admits flying on his plane once in 2002.
But again, it just shows how deep that network went. And then you have Brett Ratner, the director.
This is a classic case of a photo versus a statement. Ratner had told the Wall Street Journal point blank that he did not know Epstein, never met him.
And the files.
There's a photo. Ratner on a sofa, hugging a woman, sitting right next to Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to argue you never met the guy you're sharing a sofa with.
So let's pull all this together. We've got politics, tech, royalty, sports, Hollywood. What does this actually tell us?
When you connect the dots, a really clear picture starts to form. The common thread here isn't just that these powerful people knew Epstein. It was the integration.
The integration.
Yes, this wasn't some secret, underground society. It was Buckingham Palace. It was business meetings. It was casual emails about harems. These files show a massive bystander effect among the most powerful people on the planet.
And you see all these statements now in 2026. I deeply regret it. I didn't know. But the emails from 2010, 2012, 2013, they just show cordiality. They show logistics and planning.
That's the core takeaway, I think. While some things, like the anonymous FBI tips about Trump, are unsubstantiated, and we have to be clear about that, the verified emails and photos, they paint a damning picture of a network that just tolerated a predator because he was useful.
It's chilling. It really is.
It makes you question the whole system of accountability. Why did it take this long, and why was he still so plugged in right up to the very end?
Which brings us right back to where we started this whole conversation. From FBI tips to palace invites.
3 million files. And we have barely scratched the surface.
I just want to leave you with one final thought to think about. We started with that meeting, July 29th, 2019. The lawyers are talking cooperation. The door was just starting to crack open.
And then it slammed shut.
Exactly. But now, look at this web of connections we've just talked about. Politics, finance, royalty. If his lawyers were really floating the idea of cooperation, what would that cooperation have actually looked like if he'd lived? Who else was about to be named?
And maybe the bigger question is, with 3 million files now out in the open, what are we still missing? What's still buried in that haystack just because it's too big to search?
The story isn't over. It's just getting more detailed. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious.
And stay critical.